In 11.2, we're working on evaluating algebraic expressions. So remember, we said variables can be any number. Now we're told what those numbers are. So for example, if we know A is 5 and B is 7, we can evaluate this expression. Um, and so we've got A plus B. That would be 5 plus 7, which is 12. So you can substitute the 5 in for your A, substitute the 7 in for your B. In the next example, you have 3 times A times B, so you would get 3 times 5 times 7, which is 105. Make sure that you're following the order of operations that's dictated by BEDMAS, and also perhaps a new rule for you. The B we know already stands for brackets, so anything in parentheses, but it also stands for above and below the bar. So if you have a fraction bar, you have to evaluate above and below that bar before you divide. Above and below bar. Okay. So here's some examples. So we've got 7 times C plus D. Up here, we've been told what these variables are. And so we're going to substitute in the -4 for C, and we substitute in the 5 for D. Then we follow BEDMAS by evaluating within these brackets first to get 1, and then we have 7 times 1 gives us 7. In the second example there, once again, we're going to substitute in the values that we now know. So 5a becomes 5 times 2, since a is 2, and then plus 9b, b is -3 in this case. So we put in our -3. Then using BEDMAS, we're going to start by doing that multiplication. So we've got 5 times 2 gives us the 10, 9 times -3 gives us the -27, and then we add those together left to right to get -17. And final example there, we have 3 times c squared. Because anytime you see an exponent like that, the exponent only applies to what's immediately to the left. So only the c is getting squared. If I had had brackets like this, then the 3 would also be getting squared, but I don't. So it's going to be 3 times whatever c is. Okay, so c in this case is -4. So we get 3 times, we put in -4 for our c, and then that's squared. -4 squared means -4 times -4, which gives us +16. So that's how we end up with the 16 down here. And then you would multiply it by 3 to get 48. So pause this video and see if you can evaluate the expressions on the next page here. And let's do these together now. So in this first example, we're told x is 3, so we're going to have 4 times 3 squared plus 2. Okay, and then using BEDMAS, we're going to start by evaluating our exponents. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which gives me 9. Then I'm going to do my multiplication to get 36 plus 2, which gives me an answer of 38. Next one, we have 5 times z plus w, and here our z is 4, and our w is 5, so we're going to sub those in. We're going to use BEDMAS, which means we start with our brackets, so we get 5 times 9, and 5 times 9 gives me 45. If you haven't seen this notation here before, if you have brackets around a single number, that means multiply. So I could have also symbolized that like that, 5 times 9, or like that. Okay, it just is another way to say multiply. Okay, next one. I'm going to do this on the line down here. We've got 7 times, okay, z is 4, so 4 squared. And then minus y squared, y is 2 squared. Okay, so we've got 7 times 4 squared is 16, and then minus 4, or 2 squared is 4. So we have 7 times 12, and 7 times 12, I feel like I should know, but I have to look it up. Is that 84? 84. So we end up with an answer of 84. Okay, next one. We've got 2 times p squared. P is -4. So that Q or the P, all of P was getting squared. That means all of -4 is getting squared. That's why the brackets are super important here. Because if I didn't have the brackets there, only the 4 would be getting squared, not the negative. So we need to show that the entire -4 is being squared. And then we've got plus Q, which is plus 3. Okay, now we're going to follow BEDMAS, which tells us to do our exponents. -4 squared is -4 times -4, which is positive 16. Then with BEDMAS, our next thing would be to multiply. So we would get 32 plus 3, which gives us 35. Okay, be careful with things like your brackets. Here on this next one, we have negative q squared. Remember, the squared only applies to the q. It doesn't apply to the negative unless I had brackets like this, which I do not. So our negative stays out front. You can think of it as a -1 out front if you want. So we've got a negative, and then q is 3. So the 3 is getting squared, and that gives us -9. Okay, compare that to our next one. Now we do have brackets. So we've got negative q, which would be negative, and then q is 3, and that is all being squared, which means it would be -3 times -3, and so this time you'll end up with positive 9. Next, we have 6c divided by e. That's 6 multiplied by 5. C is 5 divided by e, which is 3. Then using BEDMAS, we're going to first evaluate above and below the bar. That means doing the multiplication on top to get 30 over 3, which gives us an answer of 10. Next one, we have 4 times d, which is 8, plus e, which is 3, and that's being divided by c, which is 5. So we're going to evaluate above and below the bar. Above the bar, first we do our multiplication, which would give us 32 plus 3 over 5. Now we can do our addition to get 35 over 5, and that simplifies to 7 equals 7. Okay, and then we've got 10d, that's 10 times 8, minus e, which is 3, and that's being divided by d plus e, which is 8 plus 3. So first we're going to do above and below the bar. Above the bar we get 80 minus 3, and below the bar we get 11. So then once we do that subtraction, we get 77 over 11, which gives us 7. All right, and next up, we've got m, which is -6, plus 3 times n, which is 4, and that's being divided by a p-value of -3. So let's start by doing the multiplication on top to get 12. Then we can do that addition on top, which would give us +6 over -3, and that simplifies to -2. Okay, and next one, we've got 4 times m, which is -6, plus n, which is 4. We're dividing by m of -6 plus 4 times n of 4. So we get -24 plus 4 over -6 plus 16. And if we do those additions, we get -20 divided by 10. And so we get an answer of -2.